Welcome to the Duchatschek Show. This episode is brought to you by Workforce Alchemy, helping leaders improve hiring, engagement, and retention while uncovering people-related profit leaks hidden in everyday operations. Today's guest is Allan, and he is an expert in using email marketing and narrative-driven communication to build trust and drive revenue. Allan's path is anything but typical. After leaving a stable corporate career and spending 2 years blogging without earning a single dollar, he eventually developed a system that turned email storytelling into a highly profitable business model. Today, he teaches thousands of entrepreneurs and professionals how to communicate with clarity, authenticity, and impact. Whether you run a small business or lead a large organization, Allan's insights into persuasion, customer connection, and message design apply at every level. Allan, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, and it's a pleasure to be with you here, Mason.
So before we dive in, tell me about your quarter life crisis. What was that all about?
Yeah, so that stage of my life, I'd call it the time when I was an educated bum. So it was around the time where Rich Dad Poor Dad came out. So that was around 2010s, late 2000s. And I was graduating around that time. And I finished accountancy. I was about to go to that corporate route. But because of reading that book, it kind of changed the way I look at money,
Love
passive
that book.
income. Yeah, it's
I've read
wonderful.
it and a bunch of his books. And I encouraged my son to read it too, and he did. So I feel like a better parent because I was able to persuade him into reading it. But go ahead, I didn't interrupt you. You're saying so.
That's wonderful. Yeah. It's like making money work for you, right? So during that time, me and a bunch of my buddies from college franchise a restaurant, a fast food restaurant. And we thought that would be the easy way of doing business because it already has a system. But we were young back then and we didn't know what we didn't know. Like handling people, like getting pirated, machines breaking down, those things. Yes, there are systems, but you have to take charge of them. And I was doing this while I was working in corporate. So I kind of got burnt out doing both. That's when the quarter life crisis kind of started because I didn't make it I'm not making it as an employee and as an entrepreneur. So I was in that gray area. I have so much education, but nothing to show for it. And that's when around the time I explored alternatives. And that's when I discovered, we call it now Upwork for freelance work. Back then it was
Sure.
called Odesk.
I remember
And
Odette.
It was taking shots of me every randomly just to make sure I'm not checking Facebook. So
Absolutely.
it was the time that it opened up my eyes because growing up, we have a family business doing wholesale trading. That's the only business I really knew other than corporate. And I was surprised that, hey, I can do this from home and make good money. I was earning 3 times more than my banking job. And I was an assistant manager back then. So it would open up my eyes. And when I started helping out in our family business, I couldn't trade time for money anymore. So I was thinking of leverage. And that's where email marketing and affiliate marketing came in. So I was writing emails promoting affiliate products. So by affiliate products, I'm referring basically people to buy a product and I get a commission. And that's where, all right, I can do this at scale, even while I'm working full time. And that's kind of how I got started into email marketing, into digital products right now. And yeah, that's kind of how I started to this journey of writing emails and selling air basically, because with courses, with ebooks, you don't get a knock on the door with your item. You just purchase something and it's magically with you. And that was mind blowing for me back then. And it has also gave me the freedom to move around. I say to my community that I believe that empty spaces in your calendar are appointments too, because we have the tendency to fill our calendar with things to do. But having it blank, it's also an appointment. It's also a commitment to be with your family and to do nothing. So yeah, that's kind of my journey on how I ended up doing this.
So how did you get through 2 years of doing this with almost no income? I mean,
Right.
tell me, there's a story of resilience and determination in there somewhere. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah. So of course, as an accountant, we're trained to be conservative. So I was doing that on the side while I was blogging. I was doing all those things. I was helping out in the family business, but I was also sacrificing recreation time because I would do it early morning or late at night. And this was around the time I was about to get married to my high school sweetheart. So kind of urgent to make money. So the resilience there, I wouldn't say I'm a type A personality, unlike most leaders, or I guess perception of most leaders. So what really drove me was the fact that I was clear on what I don't want to do. So for example, with the corporate, I kind of understood that, okay, that's not for me. Franchise, restaurant, food business, that's not really for me. With our family business, I feel like it's not a corporation, right? It's a mom and pop store. And you have to be there Monday to Saturdays, including holidays, right? And I'm not really sure if that's the path for me. And by getting a taste of success and Otis, a little bit of internet marketing, even if I wasn't making money selling digital products yet, it was my drive to create a new path that kept me doing that for the longest time. Some ways my friend would call it like negative energy. It's because I'm running away from what I don't want rather than pursuing a positive, something of a big dream. But that was reality for me. And that was what kept me going.
You know what? It's funny you say that because there's so many people say, I have a to-do list. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I list things I don't want to do. There's value in knowing, hey, I didn't want to do this. So you knew you tried the franchise thing, you tried the corporate thing, and like, I don't want to do this. Sometimes knowing what you don't want to do is almost as important as knowing what to do and why. And the other thing
Exactly.
that I hope the listeners are tuning in, which was not lost on me, was I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are executives that want to become entrepreneurs, want to do things on their own. And a lot of them just take this big plunge. And you said, hey, I was young and I didn't know what I didn't know. Well, a lot of folks who have grown up in a corporate environment, they don't know what they don't know about being an entrepreneur. And they've got their savings and they've got experience. And they say, hey, I'm out of here. They quit their job. They go all in on it. And then they learn the hard way that there is a cost of education and finding out what you don't know. And what I
Right.
appreciate about your style, and I hope others listening do too, is that you did what you needed to do and made different choices. Like, I'm going to invest what would ordinarily be recreation time in self development. And you developed skills and you got experience and you learned what you didn't know without putting undue pressure on yourself so that you were financially strained. And by keeping the job that you didn't like and didn't give you what you wanted, I'm certain that drove you harder to do more, better, and faster for yourself. Is that an accurate
Right.
assessment?
100%. And I think as I grow older, the perception of a job, I realize that a job is a blessing because it creates that safety net while you're exploring new things, exploring entrepreneurship. And because the last thing we want, at least for me personally, is to act in desperation. For this to have to work, right? For this to have to work, you make different decisions, you sound different, your energy is different, and people can catch up on, can pick up on it with even if you have a script on what to say to close a sale, if they can feel that desperation, it will show. It
It
people
will.
can feel it, right? And the stress is different, and I think it's really having that. It's not to say that sometimes safety has a bad rap, like go all in, rest, right? That's the bravado. I would rather stay in the game long enough, to get my hits, take my losses, and like learn from them. Because if you go all in and you something doesn't work, right? Then
And things often don't work right out of
yes,
the
most
gate.
of the time they don't. Right. Most of the time they don't. And I think that's one thing that entrepreneurship will teach you really early because success will be for us understanding that conversion rates mean you win less, you lose more than you win. And that can be considered success. In basketball, like Steph Curry is renowned as the best shooter, but he misses half his shots, right? And that's considered success. In baseball, having a 300 average is amazing, but that means you failed 70% of the time. And that's something that with the transition for me going from corporate to entrepreneurship, that's something I have to get used to, right? That I'm not somebody who has thick skin naturally, but the more reps you get, understanding that, okay, these are how the numbers work. And you have to slowly detach emotion from it because the results of your business is not a reflection of your self-worth. And that's a hard lesson that I had to learn
It's just something you do. It's
because
not who you are. It's not your identity. And I'm glad you
exactly.
made that point because I know so many people like maybe achieve a high level of success in a career or something like that. And then all of a sudden they lose their job and they feel like they're less of a human or they're less successful. And no, you're still every bit as wonderful as you were before. You just are going to do something different to earn a living. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
And
And that's where I
and I
think, go ahead.
and I love what you're talking about too, because I see people just in regular conversation, like, oh, I've always dreamed of owning my own business. I've always dreamed of being an entrepreneur. I want to, I can't stand my job. I want to get out of here. And like, when should I make the move? That's one of the questions I get asked on a regular basis. A business, I want to start a business for myself. When do I make the move? And my answer more often than not is a similar path to what you took. Work on your own business, develop it on the side, develop the skills on the side, learn what you don't
Right.
know. And when you are proving your concept and you begin getting
Right.
customers and you get reorders, then all of a sudden now you know you have something viable. And when the opportunity cost of working the job you can't stand is now exceeding what you could make if you applied that extra time towards your business, that's the time to move. At least that's the answer
That's
I usually
wonderful.
get.
That's a wonderful and practical sweet spot, right? Because there's an cost really of staying in the job now. And what helped me, if I were to talk to my younger self, I'm not sure if you'd agree with this, Mason, but for me, I think one of my biggest flaws that I didn't realize back then was when I was starting this side job, this side business, was the fact that I called it a side gig or a side business because it gave me an out. If there's delays in my output, hey, I have a full time job. If I did something late, hey, amazing, I did it, even if I have a full time job, even if it's 2 months late. So looking back, I should have thought that, hey, my identity, like I'm a dad. Sometimes I don't see my daughter, I only see my daughter 45 minutes. If she's busy, I'm busy. That doesn't make me less of a dad, right? So your identity is not tied to time. So if I were to do it all over again, if I have a full time job and I want to start a side business, I'd still call myself a full time entrepreneur because that mindset focuses on I'll find a way to make this happen rather than having a baked in excuse to make myself feel good.
That's a great point. I'm glad you shared that. So let's talk a little bit about your expertise. I know that you eventually cracked the code on email storytelling. What can larger organizations learn from your approach to building trust and emotional connection at scale?
Yeah, I think especially now with AI being able to write, it's more when we say there's this term that we often use like authenticity. But what does that really mean? And I believe like from speaking with you, Mason, I think you're of course very into practical
Very
approaches,
much
right?
so.
Not just like woo. So some of the things I believe is just documentation. Like people, if we look at in this years of streaming, right? Information entertainment are being commoditized. But what are the things that are still so popular? People are willing to pay for. For example, live sports, right? Like streaming services are paying a bunch of money to get the rights for that. And what are live sports? A lot of them is there's with our sports heroes, in some ways there's hero worship there. Like for kids, right? We idolize these greats. And one way to look at the brand is it's because we follow their story. They represent us, right? It's not just entertainment. They mean something to us. And I think something that we can do with brands is having that not necessarily thinking of ourselves as content creators, but perhaps like a protagonist, right? So what does that entail? For example, I see that you have a wonderful background. You have a wonderful setup there. Even just leading up to your setup, sharing updates of how you're building your studio, how you're building your podcast, things that went wrong in your podcast, things that went right. Those people like to follow people who are moving, who are showing the type of life that they want. And also that extends to the brand. For example, one of my emails, I put up a 2026 calendar here because one of my intentions is I don't want to move month to month, but I want to understand how January will affect my June and make sure what I do there also improves my November. And that's one of the philosophies that I have in my business, in my community. And I try to show that show, don't tell. I'm not just saying that, hey, plan your life. Hey, here's exactly how I'm doing it. I just bought this. It just arrived a couple of weeks ago, right? And that's part of authenticity and living what you're preaching. And I think that's a fresher approach that AI can't just replicate. Like one of my favorite sources of ideas is just looking at my phone, look at the images that I took, the photos that I took. Because if you think about it, we only take photos of things that matter, that we want to remember. Right? So each photo, there's a story there. There's a reason you took that photo. And that's something very personal to you. No one can contest that. And you can use that as the medium to share your message, share your story.
So I know you do a lot of work, obviously email, and email is a super crowded channel for most companies. What differentiates messages that get read from the ones that get deleted, in your opinion?
A lot of them, I believe, is understanding the approach that I don't just want to be read. I want my newsletter to be a reading habit, right? So because it's not just one-off emails. It's so one thing that I love to start off with, even when people just joined my newsletter, is sharing with them my philosophy. This is going back to the protagonist angle, right? This is how I envision my life. This is what I believe in. For example, one of the emails that I wrote for a client before was they're into personal finance. And if there's something that you want to learn, what I want to share is that here in the Philippines, one of our biggest exports are people, like our talent, right? A lot of people work abroad. And it's easy to write an email that, hey, we're going to help you make more money, yada, yada, yada. But one thing that we wrote there in the email is like, hey, like having a family photo with your dad missing isn't the Philippines that we want. So for us, we believe in a family reunion where nobody has to call from Zoom. Like when you have to bring somebody to the emergency room, you don't have to choose which medicine to give them because that's the only thing you can afford. So like those things, like, okay, those are philosophies. Those are things that I also like. They have to have that buy-in because if they can see a future, if you share that future, they can see that they have a future with you, right? And what you say next, once they're hooked with that, you know, the succeeding message, your format, those are, yes, they are important, but they're not as consequential as that vision, right? And once you're hooked with them, they're hooked with you, then that's when you can share your updates, your stories. It will make everything else be easier. Just like a Netflix would always have that log line, that 1 to 2 sentences on what this series is about. That's what hooks you in. And the series will then slowly reveal what the story is and hook you from one episode to another. That's basically what we can do with emails as well.
So I actually did a post on this just the other day. Gary Vaynerchuk has a saying that marketers ruin everything. And when they abuse trust and things like that. What tips or advice do you have for getting potential clients to even agree to get on one of your email lists, given how many marketers, and I use that with air quotes, have
Yeah,
abused trust, spammed people to death, and sold email addresses to other similar companies
right,
who do more of the same?
right. Well, first of all, don't do that. Don't sell it. But at the same time, maybe for me, it's I pay equal attention to repelling as to attracting. So who do I really want to attract in my space, right? And I believe like I want to attract personally. I want to attract folks who think in terms of philosophy, not just in terms of tactics. So in order to attract that, I believe like attracts like. So if I talk about philosophy more, those are the people that I will attract. There might be lesser of them. It's always easier to attract folks. Hey, here are the 3 sentence script to close any sale. Like a bunch of people will join. But partly you will also attract a lot of triers who will try but never buy. So it's really, it depends on what your strategy is. But I think a lot of the selling happens even prior to them landing on your opt-in page. For example, in your case, like you have a lot of content. Like you mentioned, like you share on LinkedIn, right? You share
Always.
on LinkedIn. Always, you have this podcast. People can listen to you, and that's also why I like to meet up with people, attend wake up until like midnight to create these conversations is because, okay, people do their research, right? People do their research. They want to listen to you. They want to see you. And that's one of the ways that you can build trust even before they reach your opt-in page. So that by the time they even receive your email, it's already there, right? Because especially now with AI, I think like having video is the same. If you read the transcript, it's one thing. But if you hear somebody, how they say it, their cadence, even their awkwardness, all those matter because there's a lot of mentors. Personal finance, for example, it's basically the same thing being taught by different people, but you do resonate with folks that align with who you are. So I think a lot of those, other than just being a good person, right, making you stand out happens a lot before they even land on the opt-in page.
I'm just curious what your opinion is on this, because there's sometimes I see business practices out there and I'm like, why would anybody ever do something like this? You talk about getting repelled. I'm almost to the point where I won't ever give out my real email address to an opt-in because I
Right,
know that I'm going to get spammed to death and I'm going to end up on lists and my email is going to be basically worthless to me because
right,
it's been abused so many times. But I keep asking myself, why would companies do this? Like, I s for the heck of it, in preparation for this, I went ahead and signed up for a guy that had a really beautiful pitch, and it was fantastic, and, of
right,
course, I used one of my side emails t so that and I opened
right.
it a week later, and I had 20 emails from the guy. 20 of them in one. Why would anybody do this? And I'm sure people listening
Right,
have experienced this. I'd be shocked if anybody listening hasn't experienced this.
right,
But I have to ask, well, if it wasn't working, why would they keep doing it? So I'm wondering,
right,
what's your thought on this? Because it must be working, otherwise they would stop doing it, but I don't see
right,
how.
right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think it's a lot about setting expectations early and making sure that, for example, in my very first email, I do send regular emails during weekdays. So I tell them, okay, so hey, here's my philosophy, here's my plan. I'm gonna send you one email, one insight daily, and that will include an offer. Because in my perspective, hey, there are folks who would rather not read, but would rather get help right away. So I
Sure.
always have that option for them. And if they're not into that kind of frequency or vibe, then I encourage them to unsubscribe. I would even tell them it's the blue button below. So I think it's for the frequency, for having that matching understanding. And also with attention now, I think in terms of volume, open rates are not what they used to be like a decade ago. So I guess if you think of it, if you have a 20% open rate, then chances are 80% of your audience aren't seeing your message, right? And they make it up for it with the volume game, right? So that's, I think, where when you send more emails, it kind of just numbers game, making it more chances that they see it and they click on it. So there's that approach. There are folks who do it more like monthly, weekly, and have a different approach. Might be best to have give people options as well. How frequent do you want to receive emails? So
See, that's a good
there's no
idea. That's a
right.
good idea because I assume, and usually correctly, that I'm gonna get spammed to death in my inboxes, and a lot of times I'll unsubscribe and I still keep getting them.
Mm,
It drives me crazy, and my emotions towards those companies are not pleasant.
right,
That's a nice way of saying it. But to be able to say to somebody, "Hey, if you want daily, here's an option. If you want weekly, here's an option. If you want monthly, here's an option. And if you just want it sporadically, hey, check out my blog when you feel like it, or check out my podcast or YouTube channel." Those are because I've erred on the side of I don't want to have to convince anybody. I just want to put my thoughts and my content and my story out there and trust that it's going to attract the right ones and it's going to repel the wrong ones. But I don't want to do to anybody else stuff that I don't like being done to me. So I
right.
probably err on the side of not pushing out emails on a regular basis. But what I'm taking away from it is I feel like I'm on the other extreme of it, of
Mm,
just sharing my stuff and letting those people interact however they see fit.
right,
And I have intentionally neglected regular outgoing emails, which I'm sure some people would say that's a mistake. but I just
Mm,
don't. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. But what I really like about what you said is give them the option and serve them the way they want to be served. If someone wants daily emails from me, I don't have that. I'm not going to offer that, and I haven't offered that. But that might be a
right.
mistake on my part because there is a percentage of the population out there that is not like me and does want those
Huh.
tips and would find them helpful. So I really learned from what you just said as far as giving people the option and then fulfilling it instead of
Right,
making a
right.
decision for them, like, oh, I'm going to spam you to death on one end of the spectrum and trust the numbers, or hey, I'm never ever going to send you that nonsense, and I'm here for you whenever you feel like it. And there's
Mm,
probably a whole bunch of people in the middle. But neither of those other extremes are giving the people the choice that you've recommended, which is a huge takeaway for me. I hope people are listening. That is a gem that you just dropped on me. Thank you for sharing that.
thank you. And one of my philosophy when writing these emails is I want if I ever meet this subscriber in person, I would like our interaction to be pleasant. Like we would give each other a high five. Right. So I only send out things that I'd be happy to send my mom to. And I don't actually filter customers and leads. So even people who bought from me, they would also get my emails because my idea there is there's always value inside, there's always insight. So even if there's an offer to a product they already have, my thinking is this is an offer for help. This is an offer of insight. So some customers, sometimes I filter them, but they want to get the emails too, right? Because even if they already bought the product, they want to get the insight. And I just approach it that philosophy because for me, my approach is more of a solopreneur. So I don't have a big company, right? So I would rather be able to serve everyone because filtering does have that automation extra tasks. But for corporations, of course, that can be managed. But sometimes how do I make this as simple as possible? I make sure every email should serve their inbox. And a lot of this comes from research, like what are the things that bother them? And I use my emails to help them alleviate those problems. Right. So, and part of it mixing it with stories. And so there's that element of
I'm going to interrupt you
protagonist.
before I lose a train of thought here.
Go ahead.
How do you, let's just say that you're sending me emails on a regular basis,
Sure.
and I get into the habit, which I admit I've done, where I get a bunch of them from some where they've
Right.
overshared too much, and it's like it's the same old stuff, and I just literally don't even read it. I just
Right.
ignore it because, oh, it's from them. Well, what if they needed to send something to me that is important and is very specific to me? The chances of me ignoring it
Hmm.
are very, very high.
Right.
Like if it's just blended in with a bunch of other things, I wouldn't know that that was, hey, Mason, I'm trying to get a hold of you. I got a question for you, or what's your solution, or do you have one for that?
Well, that's a great question. Sometimes we do send, sometimes there are techniques where it can, I do say, for example, I do have some swipe files where, okay, what emails made me absolutely open my inbox, right? For example, I get that from banks. When the subject line says action required, right? So they kind of have a compilation of those things, right? That kind of used
Action
for,
required is a good one. That works on me.
right? Action
Watch my inbox.
required.
My inbox tomorrow will be showing up with action required, action required, action required.
But those are kind of pressed in case of emergency, right? If there's something major that you want to announce, right, that would kind of necessitate people's attention, right? So I try to also look at back at my stats, what got the most opens. And if there's something important, I would mimic that model, right? So there's no perfect way of doing it. Like people have different approaches. So my thinking perhaps with my volume is I'm thinking at my dream client because there are times when I've subscribed to a list and they send a lot of emails and I binge read all of them, right? It doesn't happen to everyone, but for the right time, for the right person, I need that thing. And that was what helped me get through something, right? And for me, I'm thinking not in the spectrum of people who subscribe. There will always be folks who perhaps just checking things out, just want the lead magnet. And on the other spectrum, there are folks who really need you right now. And I skew to the assume I kind of want to serve those top 20% of folks because those are the folks who need my help. And in every collection of people, there would always be that bell curve. Right? So I'm trying to maybe majority of folks will definitely not read everything. Even people who bought from me would tell me that, hey, I haven't read your emails for quite a while, but I'm happy that to read this one, right? When I have time, I'm happy when I read them. So I tend to skew more to the folks who are super fans. I would assume there's always that
Sure.
section of your audience. So, but again, a good compromise for that would be having that option to change frequency. One thing that I approach this with though is I think of sending those emails as a type of service. Like, for example, I would did a corporate training, personal finance on the financial side, and they would be hesitant to sending emails because of that fear of bothering folks, right? And but at the same time, business isn't coming, like nobody's inquiring, and they're also not sending valuable information they should be sending. So I was asking them, hey, if people read your email, can they get out of debt? Yes. If they read your email, would they learn how to invest their money? Yes. If they read your email, can they have better relationships with family because they can handle their money better? Yes. So shouldn't they be the ones thanking you for writing the newsletter, rather than, because some list builders would say, hey, thank you for signing up to my list. It's like, but should it be the one thanking you because you're actually creating this service, collating this content, writing stories for them, and they opted in. So it's not like we forced them. We bought the list and added them to our list, right? Send emails voluntarily. By signing up, we're assuming, right, that they're seeking help, particularly our help in this topic. So our role is to assume that they need it and provide that information, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly.
It's interesting you say that because I got an email 2 days ago from someone who I did not delete, and
Mhm.
they literally said, "Hey, if you're looking for this, here's a video that'll help you with it. If you're looking for that, here's a video that'll help you with that. If you're looking for that," and they really went down a list of which anybody in a role like mine, the long list of things you might be looking for help for, there's gonna be 2 or 3 of those items that are going to
Right.
be relevant. And there may be a whole bunch that aren't, which I was free to ignore, but they made available the things that I did value and would want help with. So I really did feel like, wow, that was a very valuable email. And those were valuable resources that are going to save me time and save me money. But instead of getting 20 different emails, I got one that said, hey, here's 20 different
Mhm.
resources. If you're this, then that. If you're this, then that. If you're this, so helpful. And literally I got that
Wonderful.
48 hours ago. So they really
That's
did
wonderful.
provide.
Yeah,
So
that's right. That's it.
where do most businesses, even well-resourced ones, waste time or money when in trying to build an online audience or customer list, in your opinion?
I would say, especially nowadays with competition, higher attention spans getting shorter, keeping audiences, making them happy, retention. I think that's a big opportunity where we drive our attention more of getting more clients, getting more customers. That's always important because there's always attrition. Thinking of, hey, how can I serve more? How can I wow my existing
Do you
list?
have an example? Do you have an idea, a tip or an example in that area?
Yeah. For example, like when we ran a 7-day challenge helping people pre-sell their idea to collect money for an idea. Then after the challenge, that's typically where, okay, here's what we have going on in our calendar if you want to join us. But beyond that, after the challenge, I would look at their output, what their plans are, and I would create this GPT, right? And map out what they can do afterwards beyond the challenge, whether or not they buy from us. And I call that like the aftercare package. So, hey, now that you have this idea, you pre-sold this, here are the things that here's like what could be your mid-tier offer, you could high-tier offer, how much you can charge for them, and why people can buy. So it paints a picture for them to do it on their own. It's also, there's an option for them to work with us as well. But that is more for the service of what's next for us, like after this challenge. So that's one. Others is really recently, we just finished Christmas. Then it's just having some simple as like sending out some gifts. I know it's simple, it's straightforward, but something tangible, especially for me in my business, it's all digital. So on the flip side, receiving something tangible would be a surprise. It makes the relationship a little more personal. It just because a handwritten note greeting them.
You know what? It's funny you say this. I'm going to give a plug to a dude that I'm going to be interviewing him later for another podcast. I literally, in preparation for our interview, he sent me his book, Radical Relevance, and
Wonderful.
inside, Mason, be radically relevant or be ignored. No one wants to be ignored. And he signed it and dated it.
Amazing. How did that make you feel, Mason?
I'm sitting here talking about it now with thousands of people listening. And when I went through, I had questions prepared for the interview. I went through them again and went through his book, learned a lot of things which was valuable to me,
Right.
and I was able to tighten the interview. So it was a win-win. I am better off because I read that, which I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have it. Second of all, I'm going to be much more capable of delivering a much more powerful podcast, which will help many more people. And I sent him a personal message back saying, thank you,
Right.
because I appreciate when people do gifts. Second of all, I said, thank you. And I said, you practice what you preach. He has instant credibility with me. I know he's a very successful speaker and author, and I know
Right.
why. He became a successful speaker and author because he does the things that he's talking about.
Right.
It's not the other
Right.
way around.
Correct. Correct. It's like the book is a documentation of what his success was. Right.
Yes.
And the small thing, like even personally, like I like, you know how in Facebook, where it's somebody's birthday and they pre-populate the post where you could just hit send and it says happy birthday. So simple things like what I like to do is open up a message, just send the happy birthday too, but in audio form. You just say, hey, happy birthday. Hope you're doing well. Right. It's the same words, but hearing it, they took the time. I can really literally hear his voice. It's not just something in passing where just hit send in mass. They really took up the time. And it just takes you 5 seconds. Right.
It's
So
worth it.
those things, right? Yeah, it's worth it. And there's this app called Bonjour. I'm not affiliated with it, but it can notify you when somebody enrolls or buys something or opts in your list. Then you can film like a short video welcoming them. So I would use that as well before when the internet service wasn't as good. I would literally ring up my clients and they would ask, who is this? So that was a time when spam wasn't as bad. And I would tell them it's me and they would be surprised because like, have you ever seen like the mentor called you out of nowhere? So, and that client that I did that for is still a client to this day. And that was like almost like more than 5 years ago. So those small things, like in a world where everything is noisy, it's the quiet, private things, like the book being sent to you. Like, I'm sure he didn't post that everywhere before sending it to you. It's
No,
just
absolutely. It was a total
something,
surprise.
right? Exactly. And it was just between you and him. And that small thing, that small relationship, that's really precious, especially in a world where it's hard to make connections. It's easy to make connections online, but the genuine ones, that private ones that's not for show, that only you and them know. Just sending a gift, sending a quiet message like that,
It's
those
sitting on my
private
desk.
things,
It's
exactly.
sitting on my
And
desk.
you remember them, those small things, right? I think that's a big opportunity for businesses, any business, big or small, to have that personal touch and to make sure that you're at the end of the day, it just tells them you're not a number, right? And people
So
want to feel
on that same
relevant.
topic, I know
Yeah,
companies often automate their emails and automation can
right,
feel cold. How do you balance efficiency with human connection? Because at a certain point in time, you can't do everything manually one at a time, or
right.
maybe you could. I don't know. What's your thoughts on it? How do you
Yeah, I
balance?
mean,
How do you balance efficiency and human connection?
I guess understanding. So I'm also a believer in this philosophy that you treat everyone fairly, but not equally. So what I mean by that is even in banks, there are preferred lines. There are gold cards, black cards, right? So we understand in economics, right? There's always a limitation. You have to manage your resources well. So perhaps you understand that long-time customers, repeat buyers, you attend more manual time with them, right? And the lower you go, there's more automation included there, right? So it's not that you don't think that they're as valuable, but it's a matter of repaying their loyalty, repaying their trust in you. You want to show them equal trust, equal care, right? So
And
that's how I would
reinvestment. If they're making a bigger investment in you, you're making a bigger investment in them, and them
exactly,
financially in you, and you in time with them. I love that. Can you repeat
exactly,
that quote one more time? You said, "Treat everyone
fairly,
fairly, but
but not
not equally."
equally, right?
That's so. What do you see as the biggest opportunity that leaders are overlooking when it comes to storytelling inside their organizations?
I think it's getting storytelling in terms of creation is a bit intimidating, right? It's like tell a joke now. It has to be funny. It's hard because you have to come up with something, right? It feels like it's putting you on the spot. But a lot of our best stories are actually in the past, looking at the rear view mirror, right? And a lot of stories is a lot of like any story without conflict is boring. So maybe
That's
if you're looking,
true.
right? Like if the hero walked past, got the girl without any fight, even if it's a Marvel movie, nobody's going to care. So maybe look at points of conflict in your life that you overcome, big or small, because those are wonderful teaching moments. And when we teach anything to our kids, it's usually from a setback. So maybe rather than thinking of how can I make this story wonderful, maybe just look at the past. What have I overcome? Have what am I proud of? I have this habit with my wife when we have a weekly breakfast. We have two questions. One is, hey, how can I support you this week? But the first one is, what are you proud of today? And typically, the things that we are proud of are things that we earned, that we went through some hell to get, right? And just asking yourself every day, what are you proud of today? Right? For me personally, it might be surprising, but I don't know the difference between a modem and a router. So I asked AI, why is my internet so slow? Then I discovered like apparently modem is where the internet comes in. The router is what signals the Wi-Fi. I get it now. So I have a sucky router. So I bought a router online. I asked AI, how do I do this thing? Apparently I just need to connect a LAN cable. Then from like 20 Mbps, I got to 200 plus Mbps just in time for our call. And I was giddy, so giddy about it. And I was telling my clients about it. I had the coaching call just before this, and they can see the joy in my face. But and I'm proud of that because it came from a conflict where I was calling the ISP. They couldn't help me. They could help me incrementally, but I had to go through plenty of red tape. I'm so happy I figured it out on my own. Even as mundane, I'm sure like high schoolers would know everything about routers,
They know
but
everything about it.
yeah, and for me, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And that could be a story, you know? That could be a story for something about, hey, even if I'm already 40, I don't know a ton about this, but I can always learn something new. And then that could be a story right away. Just look for context and you'll find opportunities there.
So if you were advising a leadership team on a 90-day plan to improve
Mhm.
communication, customer engagement, and message clarity using your principles, what would that plan look like?
I would start with, of course, I want them to understand like, what does the company stand for. First, what do we value? Because it's all rooted there. Because even if you and your competitors do the same thing, the way you do it, how you approach it will be different. The same way, like if I'm not mistaken, there's this fast food restaurant in the US that's always closed on Sundays.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, right? It competes with McDonald's and everyone, but they have their own way of doing things. First, understanding what you stand for. Then for 90 days, I would keep it simple. Just have a set of questions you answer every day. Like, well, what got you, what frustrated you today? What made you happy today? If you answer those things, those bits and pieces, do that for 90 days. Like each question, if you have three questions to answer, what are you proud of? What what round your mood today? What are you looking forward to? If you answer those three questions times 90 days, like you have like over 200 potential stories, right? And with AI, you can ask it to, hey, this will happen today. Ask me questions about today and let's form a story from there. And so those are basically you're creating seeds, and you can use the help of AI to kind of pull it out from you. And there you have it. You have plenty of stories you can tell right away.
So I really appreciate all your time. I've really enjoyed everything about it. I've learned a lot, and I will watch this over multiple times. If there was only one piece of your best advice that you could give to business owners or executives, what would it be and why?
That's a wonderful question. For me, what has helped me is this might come out of left field, but it's about forgiving myself. Right? We, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, we make mistakes. A lot of our suffering are private. There are numerous regrets that we don't want to admit, even to ourselves. But I think what really helped me is looking at younger Allan, like younger Mason. There's this one scene, there's this documentary by Jonah Hill with his, I'm not sure, psychiatrist. And there's this one exercise. So Jonah Hill, the actor, he got in shape now, but he used to be super big before. And there's this one exercise where the they brought out the fat version of Jonah Hill and made him talk to his past self, to his out of shape self. And they were telling him, hey, sometimes we are the harshest people to our past self. We would criticize, why are you so nerdy? Are you so awkward with girls? Why couldn't you be the quarterback, right? But in reality, we are the person who understands that person the most. Right? Why are we so harsh to that person? In fact, wouldn't it be wonderful if we can be their teammate, right? We can be their ally. Because of all the people in the world, you know exactly how that guy feels, how that girl feels, right? So for me, if we can be kinder to ourselves, especially to our past self, right? Talk kindly about them, forgive them for their mistakes, and maybe they would forgive you for being harsh to them as well. I think that healing, I know it's not business or
You know what?
practical.
That
Yeah.
that was a gift. And I'm sure that there are people right now listening that just got chills from what you said, and their life will be on a different trajectory, and they will view things differently and will evolve from this conversation better people moving forward than they were when they got here. And even though that answer, as you said, is out in left field, I think that it was incredibly relevant, meaningful, and deep, and I appreciate your confidence and willingness to share that. So if people wanna know more about you, what you do, what's the best way for them to connect and learn more?
Yeah. I'm also on LinkedIn under Alan Ngong. And I
Spell
also
that
have a
for everybody because
newsletter.
it sounds
Yeah.
like N-O, but I know it isn't.
Right. It's ALLAN. So my last name is NGO. So the last three words of bingo. So Alan Ngong. I also have a newsletter where, as I mentioned, I send daily insights. Mainly nowadays, I send emails focusing on helping people build one-person businesses, teaching, building an education business, basically getting paid teaching what you know. Because I'm a big believer in education and I want knowledge to travel. So I empower people to share their knowledge and get what they deserve as well in return. So yeah, you can get that at digitalsolopreneur.com/Mason. So it's easy to remember. So I'll see you in your inbox.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to doing this again sometime.